Welcome to another episode. If I only had 10 minutes, I'm Monica Talan, one of the partners at Cleve, and I'm thrilled to welcome one of my favorite people, one of the people I admire the most, Cleve Mesidor from, I think you have several roles. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, Monica. Thank you for the invitation. And yes, I wear several hats in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. I am executive director of Blockchain Foundation, which is a 501c3 that was created in 2018 to focus on education. And I'm also founder of Butterscotch Media, which is a niche digital media platform that focuses on telling the stories about inclusion in the Web3 and DeFi space. So excited here to be talking about what would I do if I had 10 minutes?
I want to start with Butterscotch Media because it's a new media outlet. Tell us a little bit about how it came about and why you launched it.
Yeah. So Butterscotch Media is in the, vein and paradigm of what Politico did, what Axios did, what, Punchbowl did. Essentially that model where you have various newsletters, but also podcasts and live events. And why was this important for the crypto media, for the crypto sector? It was because I noticed the gap. I've been working in crypto full time for almost a decade now. And we do have media outlets, and there are traditional media covering crypto, but I saw a lack of focus on diverse founders, diverse executives, diverse policymakers that are really fueling this $4 trillion market. So for me, it was the understanding the importance of these stories, the importance of what the founders are doing, what these executives are doing. So Butterscotch Media was a way to share those stories. And the feedback has been tremendous. Our newsletter reaches over 10,000 in addition to broadcasting on LinkedIn and Substack. Our podcast is extremely popular, and then the events that we do, really reach an audience. We get feedback that when people are looking for founders, they go to our newsletter. When they're looking for stories to talk about the impact of Web3 and DeFi, it's our newsletter that they go to. That the stories that they see within Butterscotch, they don't see in the crypto media or even the traditional media. We're at the future frontier. This is the starting line. But we need to tell the stories of, the various folks who are really fueling the ecosystem. Crypto is not a monolith. And unfortunately, traditional media, even Washington, treat it like it's run by this handful of CEOs. And we know that that's not the case. And we know, most importantly, that's not how we got here. And that's not how we're going to really fuel the future of digital finance.
I love that. And as an avid reader of Butterscotch Media, of your newsletter, I have to say that that's how I keep updated on what's happening in DC. So tell us, we've seen a ton of discussion about regulation, legislation. We did have the Genius Act passed. What's the status on adoption and on the regulatory front?
So where are we now? Well, we're much further along than we were 5-6 years ago, right? So as I mentioned, I've been working in this space for over a decade, and I believe that we've had a footprint in Washington since then. Coin Center was the first policy platform there, and then you had the Digital Chamber, the Blockchain Association come, then you had the Crypto Council for Innovation, CCI, and so many others have come up. And then Blockchain Foundation, as I mentioned, was created in 2018 at the same time as Blockchain Association. So we've had about 5 organizations really advocating for policy over the last decade, and we haven't moved the needle much. Obviously, passing the Genius Act last year was pivotal, but most people think, oh my God, we passed the stablecoin bill, but that was like 5 years in the making. I remember when Congresswoman Maxine Waters and Congressman McHenry worked on that in financial services. People don't give them enough credit for being the architect of this. But great, we passed it last year. But all that did was tell us who can issue stablecoins and what are the rules for issuing stablecoins. we need to go so much deeper. So market structure legislation is where we're at right now. The House has passed what people have heard of the Clarity Act. So now it's up to the Senate. But the House actually, the House Financial Services and the House Agriculture Committee did something unique that helped the House advance legislation. They actually worked jointly. The House Ag and House Financial Services worked jointly on their bill, so they were able to advance legislation together and then pass it together. On the Senate side, that's harder. The Senate Banking Committee and the Senate Ag Committee are working on two different bills. Senate Ag, we've seen them move their legislation through markup, but we haven't been able to move the Senate Banking Bill, which is the biggest sticking point. This year is a midterm year, and the first midterms start next month in March. And then we go into the 250th anniversary of the country. We know President Trump is going to make that a big thing. And then going into general election. So we have a short runway to actually advance legislation. And right now, we've had the White House step in and host a summit between some of the industry and some of the bank and Wall Street trades where we've had the friction points, and they've had two of those summits, and it has not led to some type of compromise or resolution. So the debate continues, and all eyes on, can we pass market structure legislation before midterms? Because midterms might change the dynamic of who controls, the Senate or the House. And that might change where we are at. I will say the most important thing is that we need bipartisan legislation. We need a compromise, and we need to make sure we're moving market structure because there's so many other bills necessary to ensure that this industry can grow. Advancing policy is just about compromise, because that's just the legislation side. You pass legislation into law, and then there's the rulemaking aspect. And then a lot can get changed and adjusted there, but we can't get into a bottleneck. So for me, we need to be bipartisan. The banks are not at the table. Wall Street is not at the table, and they don't seem to be going anywhere. But for me, how do we ensure the voices of founders, the voices of, micro enterprises, the voices of, diverse innovators who are fueling this space are part of this debate?
I love it. And this is why you need to subscribe to the Butterscotch Media to keep updated on all of this. Now, as you know, Comms Collective is a fractional, focus on the fractional business. How do you see fractional play out in communications and even lobbying in DC, and specifically in new tech?
Well, I think this, fractional trend is very important. And for a lot of reasons, right? We give millennials a huge credit for creating the sharing economy, and then we really can trace why crypto became an industry, why the Web3 DeFi space is a $4 trillion market, because it was fueled by micro enterprises, by small players. Because when you look at the crypto industry, it was really a ground up industry. It was really fueled by visionaries on the fringes of society that decided that we can actually create a different world. We can create a better financial system. And that actually did it. And the headwinds could not have been imagined, but I think it requires some new approaches, some paradigm shifts, and I think the fractional approach represents that. And it will be core to the global innovation economy, to the future of digital finance that does operate differently, and that will be fueled by younger participants, younger visionaries, younger executives that actually want a different approach to not just how we do business, but how we actually transact and interact. So I think this trend is aligned with where we're going in terms of the future of innovation and the future of digital finance.
Absolutely. And so to end, I do have to ask you, if you could add 10 minutes to your day, what would you do with those 10 minutes?
Oh my God, if I could add 10 minutes to my day, believe it or not, I would sleep. I would add more sleep. And I think that's relevant to what we're talking about because most creatives, most innovators, most visionaries would tell you that the thought process is what sparks ideas, which is what sparks solutions. When I sleep and I have enough sleep, I wake up refreshed. I wake up with solutions. When I'm at rest, the issues that burden me, they weigh on my mind, and I think, oh, for some reason, it is at rest when you can connect the dots. You can say, "Ooh, light bulb moment," right? So I would definitely sleep, and because I'm confident that that's where my creative juices come from, and that's where they would be fueled, and that's where I could come up with some solutions, strategies, tactics that can actually help me to, you know, resolve some conflicts, but also find some solutions.
That's amazing. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll have you again when there's more legislation and updates on what's happening in DC.
Thank you for having me on.